1984, the Victory Tour is about to become the biggest concert tour in history. Michael Jackson, fresh off the success of Thriller, is ready to take the stage with his brothers. But there's a problem, a big one. Don King, the legendary boxing promoter with the wild hair and even wilder reputation, has somehow inserted himself into the tour as a promoter. And almost immediately, things start going wrong. Money disappears. Contracts get shady. Decisions are made behind Michael's back. Don King thought he could outsmart the king of pop. He thought he could pull his usual tricks and walk away with millions. He was dead wrong, because what Michael Jackson did next, it was absolutely savage. And it sent a message to the entire entertainment industry: don't mess with the king. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about how Don King even got involved with the Victory Tour in the first place. Because honestly, it never should have happened. Don King was a boxing promoter. He'd worked with Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, Mike Tyson, the biggest names in boxing. He was known for two things: making massive deals and being shady as hell. Lawsuits followed him everywhere. Fighters accused him of stealing their money. Business partners claimed he manipulated contracts. The man had a reputation, and it wasn't good. So why would the Jackson family bring him into their tour? One word: Joe Jackson. Michael's father, Joe, was always looking for the next big deal. He wanted the Victory Tour to be the most profitable tour in history, and he thought Don King was the guy to make that happen. Don King was a master at hype. He knew how to generate publicity. He knew how to sell tickets. And most importantly, he knew how to make money for himself. Joe Jackson and Don King struck a deal. King would be one of the main promoters for the Victory Tour. He'd handle logistics, marketing, ticket sales, the whole operation. Michael hated the idea from the start. He didn't trust Don King. He'd heard the stories. He'd seen how King operated. And he knew that bringing someone like that into the tour was asking for trouble. But Joe Jackson insisted. He overruled Michael's objections. And just like that, Don King was in. Big mistake. Almost immediately after Don King got involved, things started to go sideways. First, there was the ticket pricing disaster. Tickets for the Victory Tour were priced at $30 each, an outrageous amount for 1984. To put that in perspective, most concerts at the time were $10 to $15. Bruce Springsteen tickets were $18. Prince tickets were $20. But the Victory Tour, $30. Fans were furious. Families couldn't afford to go. Kids who'd grown up listening to the Jackson 5 were priced out completely. And who was behind the pricing? Don King. He argued that the demand was so high, they could charge whatever they wanted. He said people would pay it. And he was right. Tickets did sell. But the backlash was brutal. Michael was mortified. This wasn't what he wanted. He'd never wanted to price out his fans. He publicly criticized the ticket prices and eventually donated his entire share of the tour profits, millions of dollars, to charity just to distance himself from the greed. But that was just the beginning of Don King's shady moves. Next came the bizarre ticket lottery system. Instead of just selling tickets normally, Don King created this complicated lottery process where fans had to send in money orders for tickets, and then they'd be entered into a lottery to maybe get seats. It was confusing, it was frustrating, and it reeked of a scam. Fans were sending in money and getting nothing in return. Some were getting terrible seats after being promised good ones. Others were being charged processing fees that seemed to come out of nowhere. Complaints started pouring in. News stations started investigating. Consumer protection agencies got involved. And Michael, he was furious. This wasn't just bad business. This was damaging his reputation. Fans weren't blaming Don King. They were blaming Michael Jackson. But the worst part, the money. Michael started asking questions. Where was all the ticket revenue going? Why weren't the brothers seeing the profits they were promised? What were all these mysterious expenses on the accounting reports? Don King kept giving vague answers. He'd deflect. He'd promise to provide documentation later. He'd change the subject. Red flags everywhere. Michael's lawyers started digging into the contracts, and what they found was absolutely infuriating. Don King had structured deals that funneled massive amounts of money through his own companies. He was charging exorbitant fees for consulting and promotional services that were never clearly defined. He had clauses in the contracts that gave him control over decisions that should have belonged to the Jacksons. He was skimming money off the top, taking cuts he wasn't entitled to, and using legal jargon to hide it all. Don King thought he was dealing with naive entertainers he could manipulate. He forgot he was dealing with Michael Jackson, one of the smartest, most detail-oriented businessmen in the music industry. Michael had seen enough. It was time to act. But here's the thing, he couldn't just fire Don King outright. The contracts were already signed. Breaking them would mean lawsuits, delays, maybe even canceling the tour. So Michael did something brilliant. He started documenting everything, every shady deal, every questionable expense. Every promise Don King made him broke. Michael's team built a case brick by brick, and then Michael started making moves. First, he went public. In interviews, he started subtly distancing himself from Don King. He'd mentioned that he wasn't happy with certain business decisions. He'd emphasized that his primary concern was the fans, not the profits. The media picked up on it. Reporters started asking Don King tough questions. The pressure was mounting. Then Michael did something even smarter. He got his brothers on board. See, Joe Jackson had brought Don King in, but the brothers were starting to see the problems too. They were seeing the bad press. They were seeing the fan backlash. And most importantly, they were seeing their expected profits shrinking while Don King's fees kept growing. Michael convinced them that Don King had to go. Together, they went to their lawyers and said, find a way to get him out. And the lawyers delivered. They found clauses in the contract. They found violations. They found technicalities. They built a legal case that would allow them to terminate Don King's involvement without completely destroying the tour. In August of 1984, just 2 months after the tour started, the Jackson family made the announcement. Don King was out. He was fired, removed, done. The official statement was diplomatic. They thanked him for his contributions and said they were moving in a different direction. Standard corporate speak, but behind the scenes, it was war. Don King was furious. He threatened lawsuits. He claimed he was owed millions. He went to the press and tried to paint himself as the victim. But Michael didn't care. He'd already won. Here's where Michael's revenge gets truly savage. After firing Don King, Michael could have just moved on. He could have quietly finished the tour and never spoken about it again. But he didn't do that. Instead, Michael made sure everyone knew exactly why Don King was fired. His team leaked details to the press. Stories started appearing in newspapers and magazines about Don King's shady business practices. Reports came out about the ticket scams, the hidden fees, the contract manipulations. Don King's reputation, which was already questionable, took a massive hit. But Michael wasn't done. He restructured the entire tour operation. He brought in new promoters. He fixed the ticket pricing for the remaining shows. He personally oversaw the financial operations to make sure every dollar was accounted for. And then he did something that Don King probably never saw coming. Michael made sure the remaining tour dates were even more successful than the early ones. Better production, better reviews, better fan experiences, higher profits. Michael proved that not only did they not need Don King, they were better off without him. The Victory Tour went on to gross over $75 million and played to over 2 million fans. It became one of the highest grossing tours of the decade. And Don King, he got nothing. Well, almost nothing. He did eventually settle for a fraction of what he claimed he was owed, but compared to what he thought he'd make, it was pennies. Michael Jackson had outsmarted one of the most notorious hustlers in the business world, and he'd done it while protecting his fans, his family, and his legacy. That's savage. So what's the lesson here? Don King made a critical mistake. He assumed that because Michael Jackson was an entertainer, he was naive about business. He thought he could use his usual tricks and walk away rich. He underestimated Michael Jackson. Michael wasn't just a performer. He was a businessman. He was detail-oriented. He asked questions. He read contracts. He didn't just trust people because they were famous or had a reputation. And when he realized he was being scammed, he didn't panic. He didn't act impulsively. He built a case, gathered evidence, and executed a plan. That's how you handle people who try to take advantage of you. Not with emotion, not with anger, but with strategy. Don King tried to scam the king of pop, and Michael Jackson showed him exactly why you don't mess with royalty. So, what do you think? Was Michael's response justified, or did he go too far? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story of Michael Jackson standing up for himself and his fans, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button and subscribe to King of Pop for more untold stories about the greatest entertainer who ever lived. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay smart, stay strong, and never let anyone take advantage of you. Peace.